Hello friends, welcome to the video lecture of organizational behavior for S.Y.B.B.I. Third Sem, Chapter 1, Individual Behavior, Subtopic Learning. Learning. In this video, we would learn what is the meaning of learning, what are the principles of learning, and the theories of learning. So, I would just give a quick recap of what we have done in last lecture. We have learned about the definition of learning. Learning is the acquisition of new behavior or strengthening or weakening of old behavior as the result of experience. So there are basically 4 stages of learning any new skill. First is unconscious incompetence, second is conscious incompetence, third is conscious competence, and the fourth one is unconscious competence. So these are the brief definition of learning and the 4 stages of learning. So let's move ahead and see what are the principles of learning. There are many scientists who have done their research in psychology, and one of the scientists, Mr. Edward, he has done research in learning, and he has found 3 basic principles of learning. Those principles are readiness, exercise, effect. So these are the 3 principles what Mr. Edward had found in late in 20th century. So let's see what does the 3 principle means. Readiness, whoever the person is who wants to learn, he should be ready, he should be prepared to learn something new. Unless you are ready to learn something new, how will you learn? हे सिंपल असतं ना, की जर मी तुम्हाला शिकवण्यासाठी आलेलो आहे, जर तुमची शिकायची इच्छा असणे, इच्छाशक्ती त्याच्यामध्ये खूप महत्त्वाची गोष्ट असते. तर इच्छाशक्ती असेल तरच तुम्ही शिकाल, जर नसेल तर तुम्ही कसं शिकाल. सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट प्रिन्सिपल, that you should be ready to learn. Exercise is whatever you learn, you should practice it. Many times it happens ki तुम्ही शिकता आणि you don't practice it. Unless you practice it, you will not remember it, or you will forget it, or it would not help you. The mind can rarely retain, evaluate and apply new concepts or practices after a single exposure. Every time practice occurs, learning continues. So you have to exercise what you have learned. Effect. The principle of effect is based on emotional reaction of student. It states that learning is strengthened when accompanied with a pleasant or satisfying feeling, and learning is weakened when associated with an unpleasant feeling. So now if I am using some different methods of teaching you, like I've been using PowerPoint presentations, I've been using my laptop to make you learn effectively. So apart from what we use regularly, like use of blackboard and chalk, so I'm using different types of study materials, different type of things. I'm using pictures, I'm using PowerPoint presentations, so that makes that learning process effective. So this effect of learning, this is one of the principle that makes the process of learning easy. Mr. Edward had found or has developed all this 3 principles late in 20th century, but after some times there were another scientists or there were another philosophers who found some other principles of learning. So let's see what are the principles, what are the other principles of learning. First is primacy, pradhanta. Second is intensity, tivrata, and the third is recency, nuktej. Primacy, the state of being first, often creates a strong, almost unshakable impression. For the instructor, this means that whatever is taught might be right the first time. जसं मी तुम्हाला आता शिकवतोय, what I am teaching you, it would be the first time you are learning it. So primacy is an important principle of learning. Intensity. A vivid, dramatic or exciting learning experience teaches more than a routine or boring experience. जसं मगाशी मी तुम्हाला सांगितलं की इफेक्टचा प्रिन्सिपल असतो, त्याची तीव्रता कधी चांगली असते, when it is good, whenever I use something good or something different to make you learn. Recency. The principle of recency states that things most recently learned are best remembered. The instructor repeats, restates or re-emphasizes important points at the end of a lesson to help the student remember them. जसं आपण प्रॅक्टिस करतो प्रत्येक वेळी की आपण आज पूर्ण लेक्चरमध्ये काय शिकलो, वॉट वी हॅव लर्न, बिकॉज द लेक्चर इज ऑफ 40 minutes अँड वॉट एवर आय थॉट यू इन द फर्स्ट 5 minutes would some would remember, some would forget it. So in order to revise it, we every teacher uses this principle of recency. So these are the 6 principles of learning: readiness, exercise, effect, primacy, intensity and recency. So after learning about the principles of learning, we would next go on the theories of learning. Theories of learning. So let's see what are the theories of learning. The first theory of learning is classical conditioning. So let's see what is the meaning of classical conditioning. Classical conditioning theory states that behavior are learned by connecting a neutral stimulus with a positive one, such as Pavlov's dog hearing a bell and expecting food. Positive. The learned behavior is called conditional learning. आपल्याला एखादी कंडिशन दिली जाते आणि त्या कंडिशनवरती जेव्हा आपण शिकतो तेव्हा त्याला क्लासिकल कंडिशनिंग असं म्हणतात. आणि त्याचं सर्वात बेस्ट उदाहरण म्हणजे पॉल्वोज डॉग हिअरिंग अ बेल. पॉल्वोज एक सायंटिस्ट होता आणि त्याने एक एक्सपेरिमेंट केलं होतं इन विच ही यूज्ड अ डॉग, and you all know that dog is whenever he is hungry and if you keep a bowl of food in front of him, he starts salivating. त्याच्या तोंडातून लाळ गळायला लागते. So this is a very classical condition that whenever food is kept in front of a dog, he starts salivating. So Pavlov, what he did, he added a stimulus in that. So that stimulus was ringing a bell. So he trained the dog in such a way that after ringing a bell, the dog would identify that now he has to have food or he will get food. So basically this is what classical conditioning is there. There are 3 stages of classical conditioning: before classical conditioning, during and after. In this experiment, the before condition was keeping a food in front of dog and dog starts salivating. During ringing a bell, the dog identifies that now he will get food, and after conditioning the dog starts salivating. So this is what is called classical conditioning, and this is the first theory of learning. Is operant conditioning. So what does operant conditioning? Operant means चालवणारा. Operant conditioning sometimes refers to as an instrumental conditioning, is a method of learning that uses rewards and punishment to modify behavior. Through operant conditioning, behavior that is rewarded is likely to be repeated and behavior that is punished will rarely occur. सिंपल आहे की जर तुम्हाला एखाद्या बिहेवियरसाठी इफ आय रिवॉर्ड यू तर तुम्ही ते बिहेवियर परत कराल, पण एखाद्या बिहेवियरसाठी जर मी तुम्हाला पनिश केलं तर तुम्ही ते बिहेवियर परत करणार नाही. तर ही टाईप ऑफ लर्निंग हे एक थिअरी आहे. ह्याच्यामध्ये पॉझिटिव्ह रिइन्फोर्समेंट असतं, नेगेटिव्ह रिइन्फोर्समेंट असतं, पॉझिटिव्ह पनिशमेंट असते, नेगेटिव्ह पनिशमेंट असते. आता फॉर एक्झाम्पल इफ यू हॅव डन समथिंग गुड, इफ आय हॅव गिवन यू assignment and you have done that assignment up to my mark and I am happy, so I will definitely reward you something. I would give you something reward, and that reward will help you to do the same thing again. In the same way, if you do something wrong, I would definitely punish you, and that punishment you will remember ना की सरने आम्ही हे रॉंग केलेलं म्हणून सरने आम्हाला पनिश केलेलं, so definitely you won't do it again. So this is what operant learning conditional. The next theory of learning is social learning. This was formulated by Albert Bandura. So what did Albert Bandura found that people learn by observing. So social learning is one of the theories of learning. This is Albert Bandura. I found it on the net, and this was his picture. So this was a great man who found one of the theories of social learning. So social learning theory is the philosophy that people can learn from each other through observation, intimation, and modeling. He determined three basic models of observation: live model, verbal instructions, and symbolic. So what is the meaning of live model? Live model, which includes an actual person performing a behavior. Suppose like I am teaching you in front of you, so I am a live model for you. Verbal instructions model, which involves telling of details and description of a behavior. Like for example, now I am giving you verbal instructions. I am not present physically in front of you. You are learning through a video. In this video, I am giving you verbal instructions. So this is one of the theory. Symbolic model, which includes either a real or a fictional character demonstrating the behavior via movies, books, television, radio, online media and other मीडिया सोर्सेस. सो याच्यामध्ये बरेच वेळेला बुक आपण रीड करतो, बुकमध्ये आपण तो एक फिक्शनल मॉडेल असतो, त्याच्यावरनं आपल्याला गोष्टी समजतात. तर दीज आर द थ्री बेसिक मॉडेल्स ऑफ ऑब्झर्वेशन लर्निंग. देर आर 4 elements of social learning, or we can say that there are 4 elements of observation learning. The first is attention. So what is the meaning of attention? If I am teaching you, like if I'm a live model and if I'm teaching you in front of you, so you need to pay attention at what I'm teaching you. Unless you pay attention, you would not be able to save it, and the saving of the information what I am giving you is called as retention. So this is retention. Attention and retention, these both are elements are connected to each other. Unless you pay attention, you won't be able to save it, or you won't be able to retain it. Reproduction, when you are successful in paying attention and retaining relevant information, this steps requires you to reproduce or repeat the behavior. In this phase, practice of behavior by repeatedly doing it is important for improvement. Reproduction, जर तुम्ही प्रॉपर अटेन्शन पे केलं, मी काय शिकवतो त्या गोष्टीकडे, आणि तुम्ही प्रॉपर रिटेन्शन केलं त्या गोष्टीला, लक्षात ठेवलं त्या गोष्टी किंवा सेव्ह केलं त्या गोष्टी, तुम्हाला ती गोष्ट रिप्रोड्यूस करायची, रिपीट करायची आहे. रिपीट केल्याशिवाय तुम्हाला ती गोष्ट लक्षात राहणार नाही. आणि मोटिवेशन, दिस इज द 4th element. Feeling motivated to repeat the behavior is what you need in order to keep on performing it. This is where reinforcement and punishment comes. Motivation. मला माहिती आहे की तुम्हाला ह्याच्यावरनं व्यवस्थित कळालं नसेल. मी तुम्हाला एक उदाहरण देतो. आय विल गिव्ह यू एन एक्झाम्पल, अ परफेक्ट एक्झाम्पल ऑफ मिस्टर जॉनी लिव्हर. जॉनी लिव्हर, यू नो एव्हरीबडी. जॉनी लिव्हर इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट कॉमेडियन in Bollywood. Once I was watching his interview on news channel, and त्या इंटरव्ह्यूमध्ये त्या न्यूज अँकरनी त्याला विचारलं की तुम्ही लोकांची मिमिक्री करणं, लोकांना इंटिमेट करणं, ह्या गोष्टी कशा करता? म्हणजे तुम्ही खूप चांगले मिमिक्री करता, कोणाचाही आवाज करता, एखाद्या सिच्युएशनमध्ये कोणाची ॲक्टिंग कशी असेल, आपण बघितलं असेल जॉनी लिव्हरला स्टेजवरती परफॉर्म करताना खूप चांगल्या पद्धतीने करतात. तर त्याच्यावरती जॉनी लिव्हरचं उत्तर असं होतं, अँड दिस इज अ क्लासिकल एग्जाम्पल ऑफ सोशल लर्निंग. त्यांनी सांगितलं कि मैं जब भी किसी पार्टी में जाता हूँ, किसी फंक्शन में जाता हूँ, या किसी जगह पे जाता हूँ, तो मैं वहाँ के लोगों को ऑब्जर्व करता हूँ, लोगों को देखता हूँ कि लोग कैसे चल रहे हैं, कैसे बात कर रहे हैं, कैसे चीज़ें कर रहे हैं, और वो देखने के बाद मतलब ही इज़ पेइंग अटेंशन. दिस इज़ द फर्स्ट एलिमेंट. वो देखने के बाद मैं उस चीज़ को अपने में सेव कर लेता हूँ, उस चीज़ को मेरे अंदर उसको जमा कर लेता हूँ, दैट इज़ रिटेंशन. और फिर उस चीज़ को मैं प्रैक्टिस करता हूँ, मैं उसे बार बार कोशिश करता हूँ, आईने के सामने खड़ा रह के मैं उस चीज़ को प्रैक्टिस करता हूँ. दैट इज़ रिप्रोडक्शन. एंड मोटिवेशन, और फिर उस चीज़ को मैं प्रेजेंट करता हूँ लोगों के सामने. एंड लाइक आई सेड, मोटिवेशन हियर reinforcement and punishment comes. For Johnny Lever, if his performance was good, the clap, the wishes he is getting from the audience, त्याला जो रिस्पॉन्स ऑडियन्स कडनं मिळतो, दॅट इज अ रिवॉर्ड फॉर हिम. पण एखाद्या गोष्टीवरती जो ऑडियन्सचा नेगेटिव्ह रिस्पॉन्स असेल तो दॅट वुड बी अ पनिशमेंट फ्रॉम हिम. So this is the thing. Andaru's 4 elements of social learning: attention, retention, reproduction and motivation. So I hope social learning is clear with you. The next theory of learning is experimental learning. Let's go on the next slide. Experimental learning. Experiment म्हणजे कुठला तरी प्रयोग आणि एक्सपिरियन्स म्हणजे आपल्याला मिळालेला अनुभव. Experimental learning is the process of learning through experience, and is defined as learning through reflection on doing. आपल्यामध्ये एक म्हण आहे हिंदीमध्ये की दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता है. So this is one of the theories of learning, experimental learning. We suppose for example you have been to a restaurant, say XYZ restaurant. The name of the restaurant is XYZ. You have been there, and in that restaurant the food quality was good and you liked the food, and so this is what the experience you gain by visiting the restaurant. And in the same way, some of your friend or any of your family members who wants to visit the restaurant and he tells you that I want to visit that XYZ restaurant, मला त्या रेस्टॉरंटमध्ये जायचं आहे. So you will definitely share your experience with him. You will definitely say that no, that restaurant is having a good quality of food. The food quality is good. The chef is good. The food is very tasty. So this is you are sharing an experience with your person, the person who knows. So this is what experimental learning is. You learn from experience. So experimental learning theory works in 4 stages: concrete learning, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, active experimentation. So these are the 4 stages. Experimental learning can exist with a teacher and depends on the meaning making process of the person who is experiencing it. Obviously this type of learning, it can be learned without a teacher. जर टीचर नसेल तर तुम्ही ते शिकू शकता. आणि what are the things you need when you want to learn by experience? What are the things in order to gain genuine knowledge of an experience? तुम्हाला कुठल्या गोष्टीवरती लक्ष ठेवा. The learner must be willing to be actively involved in the experience. फॉर एक्झाम्पल मगाशी मी तुम्हाला रेस्टॉरंटचं उदाहरण सांगितलं. तुम्ही समजा XYZ रेस्टॉरंटमध्ये गेलात तर तुम्ही त्या फूड इटिंग प्रोसेसमध्ये इन्वॉल्व्ह होतात. तुम्ही त्या एक्सपेरिमेंटमध्ये, तुम्ही त्या एक्सपिरियन्स गेनिंगमध्ये इन्वॉल्व्ह होतात, म्हणून तुम्हाला समजलं की इकडचं फूड चांगलं आहे. तर लर्नर मस्ट बी एबल टू रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन द एक्सपिरियन्स. तुम्ही जे एक्सपिरियन्स गेन केलं आहे त्याच्यावरती तुम्हाला रिफ्लेक्ट करता आलं पाहिजे ना, हे फूड खरोखर चांगलं गोष्ट आहे. द लर्नर मस्ट प्रोसेस अँड यूज ॲनालिटिकल स्किल्स टू कन्सेप्च्युलाइज द एक्सपिरियन्स, अँड द लर्नर मस्ट प्रोसेस डिसिजन मेकिंग अँड प्रॉब्लेम सॉल्विंग स्किल्स इन ऑर्डर टू यूज द न्यू आयडियाज गेन फ्रॉम द एक्सपिरियन्स. फॉर एक्झाम्पल तुम्ही त्या रेस्टॉरंटमध्ये गेला, तुम्हाला फूड खूप चांगलं लागलं, तुम्हाला ती फूडची टेस्ट आवडली. तुम्हाला फूडची टेस्ट कशी असते हे माहिती असलं पाहिजे, आणि ती कशी असते हे माहिती होतं म्हणून तुम्ही सांगू शकलात की नाही फूड खरोखर चांगलं आहे, खूप चांगल्या पद्धतीने सर्व केलं, खूप चांगल्या पद्धतीने आम्हाला तिथे रेस्टॉरंटमध्ये व्हॉट यू से सर्व्हिस दिली, अँड द फूड क्वालिटी वॉज रिअली नाईस. सो दीज आर द थिंग्स यू शुड कीप इन माइंड when you are, and these theories, ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टी आपण रेग्युलर लाईफमध्ये रोज अनुभवत असतो. वी कीप ऑन गेनिंग ऑल दिस थिंग्स इन अ रेग्युलर लाईफ, बट द थिअरी बिहाइंड इट, वी डोंट नो द थिअरी बिहाइंड इट. दिस इज द थिअरी बिहाइंड इट, and here we come to the end of the subtopic 1.2 learning. The next video or the next lecture would be of subtopic 3.1, that is perception behavior. So a quick brief recap of what we learned. We learned the definition of learning, then we learned the principles of learning, we learned about the 6 principles of learning, then we learned about the theories of learning, and there are 4 types of theory: classical conditioning, operant conditioning, social learning and experimental learning. So this is what I have for you to in this video. Let's meet in the next video. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.